Brigades from Cessnock, Bellbird and Kersley battled this bushfire that raced through scrub at Kitchener near Cessnock. They were called out mid-morning to an area bound by Abernathy, Kitchener and Cessnock roads. Several properties were threatened and firemen are still trying to contain the blaze tonight. Although the cause of the fire is not known, firemen say the dry conditions and northwesterly winds pose major problems. Fires were also reported in the Wattigan Mountains, where State Forestry Commission tankers stayed in attendance throughout the day. There has been little damage to property, though storage sheds on a farm at Lambs Creek near Lochinvar were destroyed in a grass fire this afternoon. Bush flanking Floraville Road at Belmont was also alight, though this fire has been contained.
Only a year ago, the Hunter Valley Training Company was running a program for out-of-trade apprentices in a bid to keep them in their line of work until suitable employment could be found. Now the tables have turned, and the training company is urgently looking for third and fourth year apprentices to fill positions now available in a variety of trades. The chairman of the Hunter Valley Training Company, Milton Morris, says there has been a dramatic turnaround in the outlook for apprentices.
It certainly has changed dramatically over the past perhaps 6 months, certainly over the past 12 months. Whereas 3 years ago, there were over 500 metal trades apprentices out of work in the valley. They had had their indentures cancelled or suspended. Our company, through its out-of-trade program, has been able to find work for all of those apprentices and complete their training. And now there are no third or fourth year apprentices out of work whom we can place in the workforce.
So is there now a demand for these people?
There's a demand for skilled labour from many employers, particularly the small employers.
Mr Morris also said there is a slight pickup in the need for apprentices in the early stages of training. He foreshadowed a desperate shortage in the future if the current trend continues.
Grass skiing was introduced to Australia from Europe, where snow ski racers found it the perfect method of training during the summer months. That was 20 years ago. Since then, it's developed as a sport in its own right, and Australia is now ranked within the top 5 countries in the world. The state championships at Mulbring last weekend attracted 5 members of the Australian squad, who competed in the slalom, giant slalom and dual slalom events.
Well, in the dual slalom, what we have is 2 men or 2 women skiing, one against the other. The objective is to have 2 runs, one of each course, and then they combine the times, and the fastest goes through to the next round. The slowest, of course, is eliminated.
Now, Australia is competing in the World Championships next year. How are you expecting us to fare?
Next year, with the World Championships in Japan, we're expecting to do very well. Everyone's very keen after last year's circuit in Europe, and we've stepped up our training program, so now we're training every day of the week, racing every weekend. I think we're going to have someone definitely up in the top 3 or 4. We're hoping for a win, but I think we have 4 or 5 in the top 10.
The models on display represent the work done by second-year students of the university's Department of Architecture. The idea behind the competition is to produce a structure that will make a significant impact on passing traffic and remain as a landmark to identify the Warrabrook housing estate. Sponsored by the Land Division of the Kern Corporation and the Newcastle Builders Association, there's $500 for the designer of the winning model. All of the entries in the architectural competition are designed for this spot, the entrance to the Warrabrook housing estate. Warrabrook is one of Newcastle's new suburbs situated at Waratah. When it's completed, there'll be more than 600 dwellings, a shopping centre and a light industrial area. Plans are also being made to incorporate a 42-hectare wetland park, a concept unique to housing estates in Newcastle and the Hunter Valley.
Hello, I'm Helen Hughes, and this is Stripes, one of the star attractions at Ashton Circus. He's a tigon, a cross between a tiger and a lion, one of the few to survive in captivity.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
The Commonwealth Bank is spending some $2 million on its Heritage ATM project. In all, 6 buildings, one in each state, will be given money for restoration and preservation. In New South Wales, the old police, CIB and Public Works Department buildings in Hunter Street East have been chosen. Today, the regional manager of the Commonwealth Bank, Tom Harrington, announced the donation. The money will be used to restore the old buildings. The cells will be retained, and there are plans for a museum on the area's penal history. In the other rooms, there'll be changing exhibitions, and it's proposed that the buildings be a centre for other heritage groups in the region. Chairman of the Hunter Heritage Centre, Ian Carmine. Which groups will use the centre?
Various types of groups, from resident action groups, ecology groups, the Flora and Fauna Society. The National Trust will have a sublease from the Hunter Heritage Centre, so they will have a base here. There will be gift shops for the Hunter Heritage Centre and also for the National Trust.
Just how significant is the preservation of this building?
It's vital. The building was built in 1849 as a first stage, which was then extended in 1872. So therefore it's of prime importance. It's one of the oldest buildings in the Newcastle area.
The review, which has been tabled in the Senate, was presented to a group of community workers for the aged in Newcastle today. The details must still be worked out, but the major recommendations are that there should be a greater emphasis on and funding for hostel accommodation, more home-based care, the establishment of geriatric assessment teams across the state to place the elderly in hostels or nursing homes most appropriate to their needs, and a national standard for nursing homes. State Director of the Community Services Department, Phil Bush, says nursing home beds won't be cut.
The review does recommend continuing increases in nursing home beds nationally and in New South Wales, of course. However, the rate of growth of those beds would be slower than it would have been otherwise. What we are saying, however, is that we would like to see a much quicker rate of growth of hostel, that is less intensive care beds than has been the case. We see that as a preferred option for most people.
Terry Fulton from the Uniting Church's Hunter Retirement Living says the proposed changes, if implemented, will cut into the profits of the private nursing homes.
It is quite possible that a number of aged care facilities would lose financially. The industry associations see that as probably one of the greatest risks. However, we see a risk in losing financially from redistributing resources from the residential facility area into the community and still being asked to maintain a quality of care.
Secretary of the Australian Pensioners Association, Jim Priest, says he agrees with the thrust of the review and says people should be given the option of staying in their homes, but he's concerned about the standard of domiciliary care.
It's trying to point out that nursing homes, whilst they may be a necessity, they're not the wherewithal. And the overall program that this home and community care program is setting out to do is to give people the options of whether they go into nursing homes. and I think that's great.
Merryweather's Simon Law is one of 13 locals in the New South Wales team for the Australian titles. He's been there before and is ranked 4th in the world amateur ranks. Along this time are 4 seniors, including Ross Clark-Jones and Mark Sainsbury, 2 juniors, 3 cadets, 2 kneeboarders, 1 senior men's and 1 masters. Interestingly, it includes a father and son combination of state champions, father Brian Hoy in the masters and son Matt in the cadets. Nicky Wood won the state junior title in his first year as a junior and will have his first crack at the Australian juniors title this time. New South Wales hasn't lost a teams event in 8 years. All the surfers will be hoping to qualify for the world titles in England, but Simon Law says that's just an anticlimax after this event.
The Worlds is a little bit easier than the Australian titles, since that you're surfing against the Australians, which are mostly the best surfers in the world.
The alarm was raised at the Mater Hospital yesterday after a Hunter District Water Board inspector detected what he believed to be a potentially dangerous quantity of the chemical Xylon in the hospital's sediment pit. There were fears that the highly inflammable and toxic chemical may leak into the sewerage system. Today, local emergency services were on the alert as a waste disposal company brought in a special toxic waste unit from Queensland to dispose of the substance. The hospital uses the chemical in its pathology department for tissue processing, and the bulk of the chemical is placed in drums and taken to the toxic waste dump in Sydney for disposal. The substance ignites at 17 degrees Celsius, and the Water Board was so concerned about the incident that they ordered that none of their employees were to work in the sewer without a safety officer. This afternoon, the sediment pit was monitored, and it was found that there was no chance of an explosion. The hospital denied that there was ever any real danger.
We don't believe so. The amount of xylol, which is the matter the Hunter District Water Board have complained about going into the drainage system, is about 1 litre a week, and that's equivalent to 1 litre of, say, petrol or benzene going into the drainage system, diluted by thousands of litres of water and, well, mainly water.
There were plenty of thrills and spills as the solos and the sidecars took to the Bali Ranch circuit for round 3 of the series. More than 120 riders were battling it out in 95 events and aiming for the big ones, the finals, late this afternoon. Plenty of interest was in the Coca-Cola Juniors and the NIB Travel sidecars, but the main one was the solos for seniors. Last year's champion, Cessnock rider Chris Watson, went in today in equal 3rd place, with only 1 win under his belt to date. First placed Kevin Horton missed the final this afternoon after he was injured this morning. And so it shaped into a race between Watson, who started on the back marker, and Wallsend's Paul Kaslik on scratch. In the end, Kaslik had too much start to win clearly from Watson, with young Todd Wiltshire in 3rd place. Kaslik now leads the series from Watson, with the final round in July at Cameron Park.
The high winds today were no match for the high spirits of the children attending Camp Quality. It's a special camp for children suffering from cancer and related diseases.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
The bridge has been funded through the Australian Bicentennial Road Development Project and will eliminate the well-known Denali Bridge bottleneck. Federal Minister for Transport and Aviation Peter Morris and State Roads Minister Laurie Brereton put aside any past differences and jointly declared the new crossing open. But the honour of cutting the ribbon went unexpectedly to local identity Dorothy Smith, who was at the opening of the original Denali Bridge in 1905. President of the Singleton Shire Council, Councillor Neil McNamara, says the new crossing will be of great benefit to the Singleton Shire.
It's going to open up not only Singleton but the Hunter Valley and beyond. It's been one of the great bottlenecks in our highway system.
Laurie Brereton also announced a grant of $200,000 towards Singleton's waterfront bicentennial park on the banks of the Hunter. But despite the announcements and festivities at the opening of the long-awaited bridge, the question of other major road projects in the Hunter and their progress remains a contentious issue.
Can you understand local people's frustration when work on projects like the Hexham Bridge falls behind schedule, yet money's been spent on other projects like the Darling Harbour scheme in Sydney?
There's no mix-up between the Darling Harbour project and the road funds of this state. The Darling Harbour project will spend $100 million this financial year. It's totally separate from roads, where we'll spend $992 million. There's no relationship between those two projects.
And another major trouble spot on the region's roads, of course, is the Swansea crossing. Why can't we get a high-level bridge across the Swansea Channel?
It's not part of the National Highway System, nor is Hexham Bridge part of the National Highway System, but the National Highway System is the New England in this area. It's on time, it's the greatest civil works program ever undertaken in the history of this country, and it indicates the very, very high priority that the Hawke government attaches to improving our road system.
But two very sore spots. Do you think the federal government should take a higher profile with the Hexham and the Swansea Bridge issues?
Well, neither of those two bridges are federal bridges. We provide about 30% of the money that this state spends on those class of roads. It's a matter for them, where they want to spend the money and the priority they attach to them.
Those who think the potato is just a humble spud are in for a big surprise. At an aggressive marketing campaign launched today at Steggles, they're out to prove that the potato can be a gourmet's delight. Invited guests were treated to a sumptuous array of dishes at the Potato Foodorama luncheon. Potato moussaka, potato Lorraine and confetti potato salad was some of the fare on offer to prove that spuds could indeed be interesting, if not downright delicious. The Steggles family hosted today's luncheon, saying that the potato is losing pride of place on the Australian table to the other food staples, rice and pasta.
And the potato over a period of time has been maligned as a fattening vegetable, which of course it isn't, and it's got a lot of fibre and vitamin C and a lot of nutrients in it that people should be made aware of.
And while the potatoes on the plate were the focus of this luncheon, the diners couldn't claim they weren't warned when suddenly a potato fell from the sky. Mr. Potato Man, to be exact, the inventor of Fred Steggles, will be a mascot of future shopping centre promotions. Sailing club is hosting the event, which is now in its 20th year. It has grown to become the largest schools regatta in the Southern Hemisphere. This year 255 craft are competing in 4 divisions. The competitors, well clad against the cold, made their way to the starting line in Belmont Bay. The conditions, with winds gusting up to 20 knots at times, were a test of strength for all, but especially for those with sailboards. Sailboarders must complete a 9-kilometre course estimated to take most competitors 1 3/4 hours. A longer 14-kilometre course is set for larger craft and catamarans. Most of the young sailors displayed controlled craft handling skills in the conditions, with skies that threaten to bucket down at any moment. The championship concludes with the 4th heat on Saturday. The school with the overall lowest point score from 3 nominated craft will be awarded champion school and travel to New Zealand to contest the 2nd Inter-Dominion Schools Championship later this year.